was this your first sort of recognition as a composer?
Yes, it was.
Oh wow! So I guess it was especially exciting. Paint that picture for me. Talk to me about reading that email or getting that phone call the moment you found out.
Um, so when Miss Kreider had called me first, I wasn't able to get to the phone. So it was one of those like, oh, somebody called me. If they need to call me, if they need to reach me, then they can go ahead and call me back again. She did. She left a voicemail, and then I was like, oh my goodness, I need to call her back. So then I did, and then I was like, oh, what is this? I was like thinking in my head, like, what is this all about? And she was like, well, I have some good news regarding NextNotes. You've been chosen as a finalist. And I was like, what? Are you kidding? Like I was like speechless. If like even if you asked her, I was just like, oh wow, thank you. Oh my goodness, thank
When it comes to your composition, I understand that you're interested in pushing the envelope, pushing the needle. What
you.
does that mean to you to sort of push the needle, to challenge the status quo?
Um, I guess for me as a composer right now, I'm focusing more on like string stuff, but I wanted to push like beyond just like hits and arco. I wanted to go like full on extended techniques if I could, because whenever I would play on my cello and I was just like in like that space between like practice and like me giving up, I would always just like figure out a random way to play something. And then I was like, huh, that's kind of interesting. I wonder what that would sound like.
So first of all, my Spanish is not great, so you'll have to tell me what this title means, Calle de los Trinos.
Yes. So Calle de los Trinos translates to Street of the Trills.
That's
And
what I thought.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I actually asked my Spanish teacher. She's a Spain native or a Spanish native, and I was like, "Hey, I'm doing a piece kind of structured around flamenco, and I was wondering if you could help me like name it." So she was like, "Okay, so here's what I hear. What are you going for first?" And I was like, I was going for like a street band kind of thing. And she was like, "Calle, street. Let's start with that." So she was like, "I hear a lot of trills. I hear a lot of palmas, which is the clapping." So I was like, "Okay." And then she was like, "You could do it like." You could call it flamenco de this, or like calle de this. And I was like, okay. So I have like all these words. I have like something that I can draw off of. And then I just went home and I was like looking at it. I said, Calle de los Trinos sounds like the one that rolls off the tongue for me. And then the one that kind of like fits it the most for like what I was thinking. So that's how I chose the name even. So
And who knows, maybe there will be a Trill Street in your honor one day. Do you think your identity, however we're talking about, whether that's being a young person, being a Filipino descent, does that play a role in all of your music, or is that idea exclusive to this composition?
sometimes Filipino culture kind of does get drowned out, I think. Maybe that's just like my American way of thinking, where it's like not many people know about Filipino culture, even like fellow Filipinos. But I kind of just want to like kind of a renaissance, like a revival of like Filipino culture. And then, of course, maybe even pre-colonial times, because not a lot of people know about that either, including myself. I've tried to look it up, and it's just like there's a lot of colonization that's happened to where it's kind of been drowned out. So
Yeah, and that's one of the great things about music is that it can kind of give us a picture into this world that we may not have been exposed to in the past.
yeah.
I wonder if you thought about the long history of what the piano quintet is in its traditional sense when you decided to shake things up with a flamenco-inspired piano quintet.
Um, I would say yes in a way, because I wanted to take like that classical what is it, like classical structure of like an ensemble, and I wanted to mold that to fit like a genre. So rather than having like, oh, we have a guitar here, we have a cajon here, we have like palmas here, and we have like people who are dancing that are also percussion because of their movements and their sounds. So I was like, how about we just condense that into this? How can we make how can I make the the ensemble feel like the street band? How can I give an illusion almost.
When I think about that title, Calle de los Trinos, you know, I'm thinking about, I have an image of this, this almost like a block party or you know, folks out in the streets having fun. But as you know, COVID has really diminished a lot of that public activity. I wonder if this pandemic has had a unique impact on your music or your composition process.
I guess with the times that we're in, I haven't really like focused in on like trying to convert that into music or like what I'm feeling so much. So I want to say my music hasn't been influenced a lot by the pandemic, but I've been like creatively, I've been like sensitive to like what's been going on. So it's just, I guess as an artist rather than a composer, I have been affected by the pandemic.
In a number of the conversations I've had with your cohort, one of the main things that comes up is how cool it is for them to sort of meet other high school age kids who are into composition. And well, what's been your experience with NextNotes?
I felt like I was in a position to learn from them, like a lot from them. So they were like throwing names and I was like name dropping and I was like, oh, I don't know who this composer is. Let me look them up. And they're like techniques, this, that, this, and everyone kind of, well, not everyone, but like there felt like there was like a group understanding. And then I was just like, oh, okay. So I kind of need to catch up because I was like, I need to figure out how I'm going to do this. But being with them, it was just like, it felt like such a fountain of knowledge, even from like the mentors, but also the students. So I guess it was just like really surprising to find out how passionate they were about what they do, and even at a young age. So then I was like, it was inspiring for me, very much so.